10 days ago, we finally received more news about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave in the Nintendo Direct, and ever since, it has been everything but silent. Basically, as soon as the Direct was over and my analysis was up, news started rolling in, and this past week, the Japanese Fire Emblem Twitter account has been posting updates and mini trailers for the 4 main characters every 2 days. And while there might not be hours of footage here, there are still a lot of new details and unrevealed elements to be found, so I think a deeper analysis is in order. We start literally a day after the Direct, when one of Nintendo's main store pages for the game delved a little deeper into what you can do outside of battle. Most of it is hardly shocking, like recruiting new units and fighting bandits, so skirmishes, but they also straight up confirmed dungeons are coming back. I already suspected that based on a super short clip we saw in the Direct trailer, but it's not like we saw laid-out challenge enemies while in dungeons, so it could have been something slightly different, but no, Nintendo has pretty much confirmed this feature from Shadows of Valentia is coming back. It's an interesting decision. I definitely didn't have that on my wish list personally, but I can see it working well with the in-between battle focus of recent games. That said, I do hope we see some improvements compared to Echoes. That game shows the potential it has, but it's not quite there yet. Maybe a second run around can help iron out a few issues that remain. But okay, I promised new stuff, so let's dive into that. Exactly 1 week ago, June 12th, the Friday after the Direct, the Japanese Twitter account, which actually has a profile picture that reveals what Anna looks like this time around, posted a more in-depth look at Kai, often presented as the first of the 4 main characters. I expect we'll be seeing a lot more out of the Twitter account going forward, with Free Houses and Engage they too revealed a lot of characters prior to the game in the weeks and months leading up to it. Kai set the tone, with a large picture featuring his official artwork, which was already shown last week. The text to the side here reads his name, that isn't groundbreaking, but the little line here next to the emblem at the bottom is very interesting. It translates to something like Rubaira's Winds, which could be the name of his faction, so to speak. It was confirmed in the Direct that Kai hails from Rubaira village, and the little profile he's given in this tweet further highlights how his initial group consists mostly of his childhood friends. So from that angle, it would make sense his team, which this emblem probably belongs to, is called something akin to Rubaira Winds. It's essentially his version of the Black Eagle House, so to speak. His profile text also mentions he's cheerful, earnest, and loves his family, which matches his known goal of saving his imprisoned father. And it adds the little detail that not only is Kai 15, which we already knew, but as the description puts it, the cogs of fate start spinning on his birthday, suggesting that Kai's story may begin on his 15th birthday exactly. Now onto the footage, a 15-second clip of Kai in action, which may not sound like much, but there is quite some never before seen stuff in here. We first get a look at his class, the Flying Orneus Rider, which was already revealed all the way back when Fortune's Weave was first shown off, and while back then I suspected it may be a unique class, especially since Kai has been repeatedly stated to be a lover of catching and raising animals, we now know this is not a unique class whatsoever. We then move to a shot of a battlefield, and this is a map we haven't seen before, although the setting to me does look like the heroic games, judging by the giant stands in the back visible when Kai attacks. On the battlefield, Kai is accompanied by several allies, and well, unfortunately, I can't give you the detailed look I'd like to, due to Twitter's poor video compression. There are some recognizable faces here. This is the girl with the glasses, who has been at Kai's side ever since the first trailer, and this orange-haired kid has also been seen with him a lot in the recent Direct. So I'm willing to bet they are, at the very least, the childhood friends his profile refers to. The brawler over here appears to be new though. It's hard to really make him or her out, but their physical description, darker skin, lighter hair, doesn't match anyone we've seen so far. They are a part of Kai's army though. They're a blue unit, unlike the other units seen here. Included among that group are Leda, holding a peculiar weapon that looks like a rake, Ursula, the archer who received quite some focus in the Direct, and this black man with axes here, whose portrait has also made frequent appearances across the trailers. These are green units though, they're merely helping Kai, which mirrors what we saw in the first trailer, where Kai and Dietrich appeared as allies on the battlefield as green units. Kai then jumps into action and jumps over an obstacle, which is unique to the Flying Orneus Rider. At least compared to other mounted classes, I suspect flyers will still be able to go past, which the Flying Orneus Rider, confusingly enough, is not. Kai then goes into the menu and picks a weapon out of choices that I don't think are really anything new, just an iron lance, javelin, that kind of work. His opponent is still without a portrait, which I keep seeing people think or maybe hope is not the case in the final game, but at this point I feel we gotta accept this might be what we're actually in for. He or she is an archer who is apparently a Brotherhood member, which is quite vague. We've not heard anything about such an organization, but keep in mind this could also sound completely different in English in the final game. When we look at Kai on the other side, I have to highlight something that I completely missed in the direct, but you all pointed out in large numbers. Kai's eyes change color. In his official portrait and default look, they're gold, but as you can see in this battle, they're red now. The reason why this is unknown, but I would be shocked if it's not something to do with the powers he gains apparently quite early on in the game that allow him to do his blaze arts, as seen in the recent trailer. Also visible on the preparation screen are Kai's crests, and I feel like I need to concede I probably need to start looking at crests in a different way from now on. So far, including in my analysis of the most recent trailer, I have been treating crests as if they are meant to show a tie to a past character from Three Houses, but at this point we've gotta let that go. I have to say, Theodora having the crest of Gaudier, so Sylvain's, already made me a little suspicious, but this image throws that idea out of the window completely. Kai has both the crest of Gaudier and the crest of Obin here, which belongs to Yuri. Now, the crest of Obin he already had in the first trailer, so that checks out, but surely we can all agree that Kai and Theodora having the crest of Gaudier is suspicious, right? Could they be related? I guess so, and I wouldn't be entirely surprised to learn Sylvain ended up having a whole bunch of children he could potentially pass the crest onto, but I think it's more likely that crests will work significantly different from how they function back in Three Houses. How exactly is incredibly hard to say, but I could see some inspiration being taken from how the emblem rings work in Engage. Maybe we can freely assign them to some extent. Either way, I suspect they'll function more similarly to powers or items or skills or something along that line, rather than the inherent power they are in Three Houses. Okay, let's move on to Monday, June 15th, the day Dietrich was the focus of the Twitter account. His profile text reveals basically nothing new, just repeating the takes we heard in the recent direct. Elegant swordsman, quenches for a good challenge, comes from Fodlan to Dagda across the ocean. What is interesting are his mentioned likes. Dietrich likes cute or beautiful things, sweets, and his little sister. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Considering we have yet to see anyone who could be Dietrich's sister, I'm curious how this will tie in. Is it just a nod to Yuritsa, who also likes sweets and cats and deeply cares for his sister Mercedes, who is actually his older sister? Or is it a core part of Dietrich's motivation that she's still in Fodlan and he's here? Or will his sister end up joining his faction? Well, she would fit right in, because Dietrich's group is referred to on his artwork as the Lemine family or House Lemine. It's a bit hard to say. Translating tools pointed me towards House Lemine, but the symbols used are different from what Three Houses uses for the word house, so the exact wording is not completely clear, even if the meaning definitely is. Not only does this clearly tie in to Dietrich's Fodlan origins, we haven't seen a single nod to anything house related anywhere in Dagda after all, it also gives us a little hint at what happened in Fodlan after Three Houses concluded. Because while Mercedes and Yuritsa are descendants of Lemine, one of the 10 elites, and they both bear her crest, just like Dietrich did in an earlier trailer, the House Lemine does not exist in Three Houses. Mercedes was originally born into the House Martritz, which does not exist anymore by the time the game kicks off, and Yuritsa is born into the House Bartels, which also does not exist anymore. Then again, we could also just be looking at the Lemine family here, rather than the house, at which point none of this matters. On to Dietrich's video, which too starts by highlighting his class, Myrmidon. That's not something I need to explain, right? His weapon Answerer has also been mentioned frequently before, but just in case you missed it, this is stated to be an Hero's Relic, a brand new one that wasn't in Three Houses. It then fades into the battlefield and this is a very interesting setting, unlike anything we've seen before. What is going on here? It appears to be some strange desert land. The ground looks like sand at least, but it's covered in pipes and metal posts, which remind me of either streetlights, cameras, or electricity poles. All three would be pretty odd to find on the battlefield, not to mention just in Fire Emblem in general. When Dietrich attacks though, we can see we are still in a stadium of sorts, so this is likely part of the heroic games. Maybe there is some gameplay purpose to the post then? Some sort of unique map gimmick? If that is the case, it's not visible in this clip. What is visible though is Dietrich's army, consisting of the exact same faces we saw in the direct a week ago when it was Ursula's time to shine. Old male priest, man who looks like Happy, and girl with the Hatsune Miku hair color. Do notice though that more of Dietrich's crew is hidden off screen, presumably at the starting area, as can be seen on the map. Then it's time for Dietrich to strike, and what's noteworthy is that while we know he is a sword user, he has a range of 2. It is possible he is carrying a 11 sword here, we don't get to see that unfortunately, but it could also be an indication of something else. As it's time for Dietrich to pick an opponent, we get a look at a few enemies we haven't seen before. Several of the red units appear to not be human at all, they look almost robotic, which obviously immediately brings up similar thoughts as their surrounding does. Is this something similar to the Argarvan technology we see in Free Houses? Or is this the time-traveling saga that was mentioned on the official website at work? It's hard to say, but seeing as this is probably the heroic games, I'm inclined to go with the former. We also get a brief look at an enemy commander who does have a portrait, the first enemy to have one actually. He's a little too far away for Dietrich to target though, so he instead hones in on an enemy who is also riding an Orneus, again confirming that this class is not unique to Kai. Dietrich picks a combat art, which gives us a look at his options. The first here is Grounder, returning from Free Houses, and the second translates to Crosswise Cut, which was a weapon skill in Shadows of Valentia. His third combat art is Bloodletting, which is exclusive to Answerer and also appeared before, and the final combat art listed here is one we haven't seen yet. I think it means something like Lightning Strike, and I suspect it's new, but it could also turn out to be Thunderclap, also from Shadows of Valentia. We don't get to see what it does, unfortunately, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is another possible reason why Dietrich has a range of 2. Lightning Strike does feel like an attack that could hit from range, and Thunderclap already has a range of 2 to 3 in echoes. We then transition to the battle prep screen, revealing that this enemy is a member of an entirely new faction, Friends of the Bride, or something along those lines. No clue what that could mean. I haven't seen a character that I would say is literally a bride, and what it could symbolically be is even less possible to say right now, but I'm wondering why this bride has robotic friends. We can also see here that while Kai uses lances and swords, this Orneus class uses axes, which might explain why the word used here translates to Cavalry Orneus Rider rather than Flying Orneus Rider. Maybe that is the name for the axe using variant. The axe in question is a brand new weapon, the Damina axe. Now, if we zoom in very closely on the expected numbers here, you can see that there is different text next to Dietrich's first and second attack. That is because the first attack is a combat art and the second attack is not, which is noteworthy because most combat arts, maybe even all, in Free Houses prevent follow-up attacks. And then it's time for Dietrich to claim his victory, which unfortunately is something we have already seen him do exactly like this during his initial reveal. Fast forward another 2 days and it is time for the big showcase of Theodora, Queen of Saramis. But if you thought that was also the name of her faction, you'd be wrong. It's listed here as Megaera's Light, which, I gotta be honest, means nothing to me. But I have the internet and I quickly discovered Megaera is the goddess of jealousy in Greek mythology, which I suspect might not actually tie into Theodora at all. It might just be the name taken from Greek legends rather than the actual meaning. At least, there is nothing we have seen so far that suggests envy plays a big part in her story. Just like her weapon, Mahadu's spear carries a name of Indian origin when that doesn't really appear to factor in beyond just the name. Her profile text is interesting here, as it reveals that Theodora's land, Saramis, is a part of the Dagdan Empire. It's not an independent place, and this also means Theodora still has people above her on the royal ladder. Her likes are mentioned to be battles, as well as doing good for her people. How nice. When we get to her gameplay, I immediately want to point out what the accompanying tweet says, as it calls Mahadu's spear a weapon used by a legendary hero. It's not a hero's relic, but it is a weapon used by a legendary hero regardless. It also once again ties Theodora to the concept of gambits, which we also saw in the first trailer. However, when you compare the Japanese symbols used here, they are actually different from what Free Houses and also Free Hopes use, suggesting that while the English term may be the same, it may not actually be the same mechanic. All the way back when the first trailer released, I already theorized that Theodora may be the only character capable of using gambits this time around, kinda like her special ability, and this only further strengthens my belief, knowing that in Japanese, she is not actually using the Free Houses mechanic, but something slightly different. When the footage starts, we again get a look at her class, which is Noble, something you surely remember from Free Houses. And again, we get another brand new map to look at, one set in an arena, suggesting this too is in the heroic games. Are we just gonna do a whole bunch of battles in here, or is this soft confirming different routes with different maps? Speaking of map though, this footage actually doesn't have a map. Thought that was worth pointing out. Theodora is aided in this fight by characters we have seen at her side before, but the one green unit in this fight is brand new. Although, new on the battlefield. It's hard to be 100% certain due to the low quality, but I'm like 95% sure this is the woman with the cat mask from the first trailer. She uses magic, at least here, and is, like I said, a green unit, so at least not yet a part of Theodora's core group. When Theodora is selected by the lucky person holding the controller, hearts start to appear above her ally's head, and this has me a little puzzled. Hearts in a Fire Emblem context immediately makes you think supports, something support related, but we did not see this in the past footage of Kai and Dietrich, and it also shows hearts above the Catwoman's head, who isn't a unit of Theodora's army. So what is this, really? It's impossible to say right now, but it's certainly intriguing. Theodora then approaches the enemy to use a gambit, one that I believe translates to something like disruptive fire, as in firing missiles or arrows, not flame fire. It could also be a rework of Fusillade, which was also a gambit in Three Houses. Our enemy here is a member of another brand new faction, the Gaia Brigade, and I gotta say, I am starting to suspect that maybe all these enemy factions are actually not all that important and are more so team names used for opponents in the heroic games. I just find it hard to believe that all these different organizations will be worked into the story long term, but maybe I'm underestimating the game. It's then time for Theodora to strike, which is, just like with Dietrich, not anything too revealing. And then we arrive at today, like the day this video went up, when we got our look at Leda. Even though I think she is to be considered the most popular of the four main characters at this point in time, we don't know too much about her story or who she is yet, so it's about time that changes. Her faction translated literally comes out to Storm of Roses, or Rose Storm, which tells us pretty much nothing, unfortunately, although it does sound cool. But we probably already know that this is not actually Leda's group name. In that dungeon footage I showed earlier, the name Rose Tempest is seen on the menu, and that is likely the name for Leda's group in the West. It serves as a good reminder these literal translations might end up different in the actual localized final game. Still though, the name Rose Tempest doesn't tell us too much. Her profile text is more useful, detailing that Leda is a top-class vihuela player. A vihuela is a musical instrument hailing from Spain, and it shouldn't surprise you it's the name of the small guitar or lute that Leda relies on. 5 years ago, something terrible happened in Leda's life, which caused her to be consumed by revenge and resentment. Seems like we're skipping the academy phase and going straight to post-time skip Dmitri this time, huh? If you're wondering what this event could have been, look no further than Leda's likes. Top of the list, memories of her parents. I mean, that's just very sad. It comes with the territory of being a Fire Emblem main character, but something about her memories being her favorite thing hits different. Her other likes are more what you might expect. Singing songs from her hometown, which is unnamed at this point in time, jewels and gemstones, as well as applause, which is very fitting for a performer. Who doesn't like a standing ovation? Jumping into her trailer, we of course again start with Leda's class. And if you thought she'd be a dancer or a songstress, you'd be wrong, surprisingly enough, because Leda is a hunter, another class that has been around for a while and is not unique to her. Ursula also has been shown to be a hunter. That brings up an interesting question though, because at this point we have seen units that aren't the main characters be hunters, Orneus riders, and I would be shocked if there's not a Myrmidon in there either, but we haven't really seen anyone who could live up to the more dubious and unique class of noble. I would be surprised if Theodora would turn out the only noble in the game, when the other three aren't unique, so while we haven't really seen it much, there may still be some noble fighters waiting for us. The tweet accompanying the video also highlights further how Leda fights, which we didn't know yet. Most of her combat clips have focused on her songs. But it is revealed here that hunters can switch between bows and swords on the fly, which is distinctly different from how the hunter class worked in past games. She can also use her vihuela to buff allies, which is a bit ambiguous. Do they mean she can use her songs to literally buff allies? Or is this a way of saying she can dance and allow units to move again? I would be a little surprised if that was it, to be honest. It makes Leda feel a bit too different from the other three main characters, but it would fit her character obviously. We then transition to the battlefield and find another brand new map. This one with an entire ship and palm trees scattered about as if this takes place on some tropical island. But believe it or not, this is also the heroic games. The stats reveal even this setting is actually just an arena. This initial shot is the only one of the 4 character trailers where we can see every single playable unit on the map at the same time. It's a pretty crowded shot. Right next to Leda is Sorako, who we already saw in the past trailer, and to the side are more members of her army, including the blonde and orange-haired woman who already flanked her in the past trailer, as well as a black man with a scar whose portrait has already been seen in past trailers too, and a blonde girl who is new to me at least. We also see the black man with the scar here, who was shown alongside Leda too in another past shot. It does beg the question where this woman is though. She hasn't been spotted on the battlefield at all yet. But by far the most interesting part of this initial frame from the trailer is actually to the left of the screen. Green units are helping Leda out, and they are familiar faces. Dietrich, his priest army member, and Theodora and her eye-patched retainer. Leda is getting help from not one but two other main characters. What is that about? And it gets even stranger. When Leda is selected, she again causes hearts to appear above her allies' head, just like Theodora did. However, they don't appear above the head of her ally in the back here, but they do appear next to Theodora. If this is really supports, which does feel more likely right now, I admit, then they have a wild philosophy here, and I'm really wondering why Dietrich and Kai didn't show these hearts. Can you turn them off, maybe? Or were they deliberately hiding them? Or, and this feels unlikely, but you never know, do Kai and Dietrich have no supports with their closest allies? Either way, the fact Leda and Theodora can, what I suppose is support, each other is very interesting. With the Catwoman earlier, who was also a green unit, you could at least say that she's probably joining you later, possibly as soon as Theodora talks to her. But so far, the game has really positioned itself as you pick one of the four characters. Could this be an early hint at the routes coming together at a later point? Or are there maybe enough out-of-battle opportunities to raise support with a character you can't use, like Rhea in Free Houses? Time will tell. Time for Leda to attack, and she'll rely on her bow this time for some ranged combat against an enemy lance user. While she too has access to blaze and combat arts, she doesn't pick them and goes for a regular attack. Do notice that gambits are not an option here either. Her weapon choices are a simple iron bow, a sword called Rakshashi's Piercing Fan, which is brand new, and a venom edge or poison sword, which is not. Based on what we saw earlier when I pointed out Leda's strange rake, I'm willing to bet that it was actually this Rakshashi's Piercing Fan, although what kind of weapon it is remains a mystery. We switch to the battle forecast screen next, which reveals Leda has the crest of Dominic, the same crest as Annette from Free Houses. Her opponent is a soldier of the Silver Knights, which only further strengthens my belief that this may just be a team name rather than an actual faction or in-game organization. I can't see a name so generic being used for something important. It's then time to strike, and while her profile may be more reminiscent of Dietrich, this backflip is more cloth-coated, so it seems Leda has something for everyone. It doesn't tell us anything new though. There is one more thing that I want to point out, however, and it is something that I can't blame you for not noticing while watching this video because, well, I want you to be able to hear me, so I obviously muted these videos. Which means you cannot hear the banging soundtracks, but that's not my point either. You also can't hear the silence. Whenever the four characters are selected, they remain completely quiet. No, I'm with you, no, what are my orders, no, for my father or whatever. Just silence. Now, I went back and checked, and when IS did these Twitter posts for Engage and Free Houses, those did have voice lines, just like the final game. So is it possible that has been cut and is not included in the game? It would be a surprising, albeit minor setback. I do also think there is another possibility, and that could be the possibility that some of these lines, if not all, hint at something IS doesn't want to hint at yet. Think for example the possible role of Ashmel on Avatar. Maybe that's wishful thinking and it is truly cut, that would be so odd. It's one line in a game that's fully voiced, why would you ever remove that? Maybe they just haven't recorded it yet, but I would advise them to hurry up then. Anyway, that has been all the news this week. I'm still a little torn on whether I'll continue to do this in future weeks, potentially all the way up to release, assuming IS keeps up this release pattern, so let me know in the comments whether you want to see a similar thing next week if possible, or prefer a return to regular programming. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and if you're also interested in either the Pokemon or Mario series, you may want to check out my other channels, Pichupedia and Piantapedia. Links are in the description. For now, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.